full throttle is swimming in the grotto, we winning in the lotto, we dipping in the pot of blue photo. Getting so good, it's dripping on wood, get a ride in that engine that could go. Batman robbing it, bang bang cocking it, Queen Nicki dominant, prominent. It's me, Jesse and Ari. If they test me, they sorry. Riders up like a Harley, then pull off in this Ferrari. If he hanging, we banging. Phone ringing, he slanging. It ain't karaoke night, but get the mic 'cause I'm singing. B to the A, to the N to the G. B to the A, to the N to the G. Hey. Anybody come be good to you? You need a back out up on your mind, your mind. Okay.
Heart is a glow, shoots up through the stony ground. There's no space to rent in this town. Out of luck, the reason that you had to get up, the traffic is stopped. And you don't even anywhere. You thought you found take you out of this place, so will you. don't know if you're happy or complaining. Don't want for us to win, where do I start? Cause you wanna go to the left and you wanna turn right. Wanna argue all day, wanna laugh all night. Cause you're up, then you're down, and in between. Oh, I really wanna know, what do you mean? When you nod your head yes, but you wanna say no, what do you mean? Hey, yeah, when you don't want me to know, but you tell me to go, what do you mean? Oh, what do you mean? Since you're running out of time, what do you mean?
Dallas, are you in 4308?
Better make up your mind, what do you
308? Is
mean?
that the number you called? I dial? No, because we're in Pluto. I dial.
Trying to compromise,
Yeah,
but I can't
that's
win.
45, right? That's 45 to Pluto. And it's 1203.
From the start, won't let this end. You wanna go to the left, and you wanna turn right. Wanna argue all day, and laugh all night. So up, then you're down, and in between. Oh, I really wanna know, what do you mean? And you nod your head yes, but you wanna say no, what do you mean? When you don't want me to move, but you tell me to go, what do you mean? Oh, what do you mean? Since you're running out of time.
And Kabuto's out of New York?
Yes.
Okay, so I accidentally called DC,
Okay.
and they thought I was checking in for the 12 o'clock.
And it's control 3.
So is this the biggest bee in the world about
I hear it now.
You know, I don't have the.
Hey, do you have another wire for her?
Podium
have this
check.
guy.
1,
Yes,
2,
thank
3,
you.
4. Podium check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Check 1, 2. Podium check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Podium check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Put your paws up, 'cause you were born this way, baby. My mama told me when I was young, we're all born superstars. She rolled my hair, put my lipstick on, in a glass of her boudoir. There's nothing wrong with loving who you are, she said, 'cause he made you perfect, babe. So hold your head up, girl, and you'll go far. There's nothing to say. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause I make no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't have yourself in regret, just love yourself instead. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. There ain't no other way, baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. There ain't no other way, baby, I was born this way. Right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Give yourself prudence and love your friends. Subway kid, rejoice your truth. In the religion of the insecure, I must be myself, respect my youth. A different law is not a sin, believe capital H-I-M. Hey, I love my life, I love this record, and me, I'm on it from late by guys. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause I make no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't have yourself in regret, just love yourself instead. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Oh, there ain't no other way, baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Born this way, there ain't no other way, baby, I was born. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Whether you're broke or evergreen, your black, white, beige, show love to send.
Media podium check. Check 1 2. Media podium check 1 2 3 4. Check 1 2. Media podium check 1 2. Check 1 2 3 4 5 6.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. We're going to ask a favor of you who are out front. I know the signs are important, but the cameras can't see the podium, and we are streaming this out to the world. So once program starts, if you guys would just lower your signs, those of you who are right in front of us at front of house, and the cameras are behind you. Thank you. We're going to start in just a minute.
Were shot, 10 of them killed in Northeast Buffalo.
This gunman entered the school, shooting children and teachers. The earth-shattering act of violence.
We are the turn of the century. We are the voice for change. We are the pieces to fix what America has fallen short on. Make it happen.
To be put upon our lives. We've been fighting since Columbine, since Sandy Hook.
The world wants change. Give it to us now.
We're saying no more.
No more. No more.
How are we feeling, DC? My name is Ariana, and I'm a national organizer with March for Our Lives. We are a youth-led movement focused on eradicating gun violence in all forms. In the shadow of horrific mass shootings and the hundreds of thousands of lives taken every day by everyday gun violence, we are here in front of the White House and the Capitol, marching for our lives again. To kick off this march, please welcome Chicago survivor of gun violence and March for Our Lives board member Trayvon Bosley, accompanied by Garnell and Raymond Whitfield, sons of Ruth Whitfield, who was tragically killed in the Tops supermarket shooting in Buffalo. They will also be joined by Reverend Denise Walden Glenn, executive servant leader of Voice Buffalo.
So before I start, I hate to have to do this even 4 years later. I had to do this 4 years ago. I need everybody to repeat after me. Say, everyday shootings are everyday problems. No. I need y'all to say it like people are really dying every single day. Say, everyday shootings are everyday problems. All right, and I say it one more time so the people in Congress understand these are real lives. Say, everyday shootings are everyday problems. Thank you. My name is Trevon Bosley. I'm a member of the Brave Youth Leaders of St. Sabina and a board member of March for Our Lives. More importantly, I'm from the south side of Chicago, where 4 years ago, I woke up to gunshots and police sirens, and 4 years later, I wake up to gunshots and police sirens. Where 4 years ago, I was burying my friends and family to gun violence, and 4 years later, I'm still burying my friends and family to gun violence. I'm talking about Chicago, a city like many others, where 4 years ago, our elected officials lied about listening to the demands of the community, and 4 years later, city officials like Lori Lightfoot still lie about listening to the demands of the community. I speak for many Chicagoans when I say we're tired of hearing Chicago this and Chicago that from people and officials who've never stepped foot on the south and west sides. We're tired of hearing from those who only come to Chicago to see the skyline or visit Navy Pier. People who know nothing about Chicago love to say, oh, Chicago has strict gun laws. What do mass shootings have to do with Chicago? Or Chicago's violence is gang-related. Let me clarify a few things. 60% of guns recovered from Chicago crime scenes come from out of state, which means so-called strict gun laws we supposedly have mean nothing if the states around us have lax gun laws. As for mass shootings occur often in Chicago, but instead of caring about the faces and the names affected, we're treated like nothing more than numbers who deserve to die. Now, as far as for Chicago shootings being gang-related, my cousin, Vincent Avant, shot and killed while sitting in the car. Blair Hope shot and killed on a bus while on his way home from school. Deontay Smith shot and killed at a block party. Matthew Rogers Jr. shot and killed while leaving a club. Lanaya Murphy, one of our brave youth leaders, shot and killed in the car. Hadia Pendleton shot and killed in the park near her school. My brother, Terrell Bosley, shot and killed April 4, 2006 at church while getting ready for band rehearsal. Contrary to what many media outlets and officials want you to believe, these deaths were not due to anyone doing anything wrong, but people living their lives every day just like you do. But I'm speaking for more than just Chicago. I'm speaking for the places who are often left out about the conversation of gun violence, places where COVID-19 was not our first introduction to mass deaths and overcrowded hospitals. You know, the places where poverty rates were already high and living paycheck to paycheck is the norm. Communities where school systems are underfunded and state penitentiaries are overfilled. Where politicians are overpaid and anti-violence programs are under-resourced, where police officers are overtly racist and our so-called justice system rarely holds them accountable. Places where, you know, where all lives supposedly matter, but black and brown lives are taken on a daily basis. This pandemic did nothing more than rip off the sheets of lies and broken promises covering the problems of impoverished communities across America. Gun violence is an America's problem, and for too long she has not valued the lives of the black, brown, and the poor. The injustices we see on the daily are being blatantly ignored by those on Capitol Hill. The cries of the nation's children can be heard across the world, and you choose to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the lives being taken. Your job is to represent and serve all the people who call this country home. And so far, you've shown us you only represent the pockets of whoever donates the most to your campaign. Now, as for us, the community, after you leave this march, do not go back in your communities and relax. People are dying every day. There's work to be done. It is our job as a community to hold these officials accountable and do the on-the-ground work in the communities to end the gun violence. But I'll end with this. Gun violence is one of the only things in America that doesn't discriminate. And every day you do nothing about it while people die, gun violence is getting closer and closer to the Capitol. Thank you.
That was powerful. That was powerful. I love the energy of this crowd, so let's keep it going. When I say, what do we want, I want you all to say justice. When I say, when do we want it, I would like you all to say now. So what do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we That's right, y'all. And it's time that we get justice. Right? As long as these gun laws don't change, that is not justice. As long as we don't do something to address the anti-blackness and the white supremacy in our communities, we don't have justice. So we are here to demand justice, and we are here to demand it right now. My name is Reverend Denise Walden Glenn. I am honored to be the executive servant leader of Voice Buffalo, here representing Faith in Action National and Live Free USA. But more than anything, I am representing my family who tragically lost our brother, well, my brother, to gun violence a couple of years ago in Buffalo. And most recently, I'm sure you all have seen the news and you know the hateful, white supremacist-led tragedy that struck our city, taking away pillars of our community that we love and hold very dear. And that's why today I'm here standing with you, demanding justice and demanding it now, but not just with you. We have family members that were impacted by this tragedy, and you're going to hear from a couple of them in a minute. But I just wanted to share a few things with you. Sorry, of course, my phone locked on my talking points. Our beloved community in Buffalo is still reeling in shock from losing 10 of our beloved community members, neighbors, and pillars of our community. 3 of them being injured and several others left as traumatized survivors by an anti-black white supremacist who came in our community and plagued us with tragic, hateful gun violence. We have been working tirelessly to figure out long-term sustainable solutions to address the gun violence, but not just the gun violence, but the other issues that plague black and brown communities across the nation, like not having the resources to meet our most basic needs because our communities are not armed with what they need to address the social determinants of health. And when I tell you that that is not right and that is an injustice, that is not right and that is an injustice. Every community should have the things that they need to survive and thrive. We need a national government that understands equity. We are tired of them not valuing us and putting no value on our life. I have said since the 14th, and I will continue to say, I don't understand how Buffalo was allowed to not go into a state of emergency. How was it 48 hours after we lost people we love, we were expected to return to life as normal and business as normal, and that's not right. That's not justice. So we are demanding to be seen. We are demanding to be heard. Our communities and others across this nation not just have gone into a state of emergency, but we've been living in a state of emergency for a very long time. Gun violence has plagued our communities, and the most recent tragedy in Buffalo, the gunman may have been apprehended, but gun violence still remains. And it is a problem all across our nation, make no mistake. It is our nation's responsibility to protect us, and they will not do that until they address the gun laws that allow these guns to be manufactured, distributed, and the ones that protect white supremacists when they use them for these hateful acts. This tragedy falls on the current gun laws and the lawmakers that allow these laws to stay in place, and the anti-black hate that continues to motivate people across the nation to act in such violent, hateful ways. We've lost many in our communities to gun violence, including the pillars of our community, and it is time that we stand up and demand justice. As a person of faith, I'm asking the nation to not just pray for us who have been impacted by gun violence, but I'm asking them to take action. Voice Buffalo and our allies are demanding local, state, and national elected officials to walk and move with us and to do it right now. We are asking them to invest in initiatives that are dedicated to dismantling long-standing racial disparities, to provide cultural competent Black-led mental health healing services for Buffalo's East Side community that have been impacted by this tragedy, and to make sure that they have resourced those communities so that those services are sustainable for the long haul. We are asking them to invest in public safety by funding community-led violence intervention and prevention programs that will come from and be funded by the unused American Rescue Plan dollars. And we are calling for an anti-white supremacy hate crime bill. So we are asking all of you, that's right, it's time. It's time. So we're asking all of you that are here today to reach out to your elected officials, local and otherwise, and demand that they support this bill. We will not be silent. We will not be quiet until this is addressed. And to my faith leaders, thank y'all. To my faith leaders and my clergy across the nation, I want to remind us that we have a divine responsibility to not just pray, but to act on behalf of justice. We must be the examples of what love and mercy looks like toward those who are closest to the pain of this level of tragedy and injustice. And I will remind them of this scripture in Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love, mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Listen, y'all, it is time for justice, and the time for justice is right now. Remember, we are the leaders we've waited for, and if they don't give us what we've asked for, we will vote them out. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Garnell Whitfield. I'm here with my brother Raymond. I'm here with my family, my sisters, my grandchildren, my children, and other families who are victims of gun violence from Buffalo, New York at the May 14th massacre at the Tops Friendly Market. We're still in a state of shock because we never would have believed that our 86-year-old mother, Mrs. Ruth Whitfield, who was buying groceries after visiting my father at the nursing home, her husband of 86 years, or the other well-loved, well-known stalwarts of our community, would have been treated so inhumanely as to be shot down like animals by an ignorant, hate-filled white supremacist armed with a weapon of war, an AR-15. But in reality, we are being naive to think that it couldn't happen to us. You know, and until it happened to us, we were sitting on the sidelines. I mean, we saw all of the things that are happening in our country. We see the loss of lives in our community, and we're empathetic, but we didn't do anything about it, which makes us part of the problem. Okay? But the truth is, while we were naive and thought everything was okay, this nation was born out of violence, built by the sweat, blood, and tears of our ancestors, and propped up by a deep-rooted belief in white supremacy. Well, enough is enough. We will not go quietly into the night as victims. We will no longer accept the inherent inequities built into our society as our reality. We will not allow you to continue to steal the futures of our children and condemn our elders to a life of fear and uncertainty, where the comfort and peace that they have given their lives for is no longer available to them in the twilight of their years. We are here to demand justice. Justice for those who have been martyred in this struggle, and action for those who are yet among us. You know, we hear a lot about prayer, and prayer is wonderful, and we thank you for your prayers. But prayer is not a noun. It is a verb. It requires action. You pray, and then you get up, and then you walk. You walk that walk. And so that's what we're asking people to do. We are here to stand with those who are bold enough to demand sensible gun legislation that will help to reduce the gun violence in our communities, that will stop the slaughter of our most precious commodity, people, human beings, sisters, brothers, fathers, grandparents, friends, and in my case, my 86-year-old mother. Let me be clear. Guns by themselves are only one aspect of a much more insidious problem in America. Let us never forget. Let us never forget, while we focus on this gathering, and appropriately so, on gun violence, whose hands are those guns in? And what are they doing with them? Why are we sitting here pretending like we don't have a larger problem? These are ignorant individuals, you know, like the guy that had the gun in Buffalo. He pulled the trigger. But there are even sicker and more ignorant systems and people in high places that are arming them, that are loading the guns, that are radicalizing these people. They're filling them with weapons and filling them with hate-filled rhetoric, and through their inaction, they're giving them their tacit approval. If we stand here and we don't do anything about this and we don't call it out, then we are giving them our approval. We demand, we're not asking, we demand the passage of an anti-white supremacy hate crime bill. Okay? Along with sensible gun legislation. And we're just simply here to say enough is enough. Thank you.
Excuse me a second. I'm like the pastor here with the technology. It shut off on me. Okay. Old school. If not now, when? Will enough be enough? When will we as Americans no longer stand tacitly by, bearing witness to hollow point bullets searing from the barrel of an AK-47, tearing through the flesh and bone of the American dream, mowing down its future in a Texas school massacre where there lies Uzziah Garcia, youngest of 19, while the eldest of 10 victims, age 86, Miss Ruth E. Whitfield, lies helplessly on the floor of a Buffalo grocery store. A devoted wife of 68 years, never growing weary of her appointment. Her last hours spent protecting the love of her life from what would be bed sores with a meticulous spread of A&D ointment. A Christian caretaker, grandmother, great-grandmother, best of friends that we call mom, lies bleeding in aisle 9. And yes, this time, this mom happens to be mine. But what of the next time? And rest assured, there will be a next time. 10 days later, from Texas to Tulsa, or just another weekend on a Chicago west or south side. Countless others that we've lost soft count of have died. When will enough be enough for decent, law-abiding Americans to muster the courage to stand up and demand that our public servants begin to reflect what the greater populace has long since embraced, common sense gun laws? And a simple background check. Now, some of you will ask us, what is it we really want? What we want is a chance to heal America's most wretched, festering scar with an anti-white supremacy hate crime bill. It is time that we all come to see what the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has labeled the #1 threat from sea to shining sea. That is the scourge and the myth of white supremacy. So let us implore our politicians in the spirit of those who have forethought and ingenuity to formulate a RICO statute in pursuit of organized crime. That is also time to strengthen the law of law enforcement, the ability to draw the line between those who would harbor, support, encourage, and yes, indoctrinate the most feeble-minded amongst us to do their heinous bidding as a misguided instrument of hate. If you listen closely, you will hear the cries of our fallen loved ones in our churches, our synagogues, our schools, and now our grocery stores. All I can say is if there is to be a great replacement, I say let's not wait. Lower your weapons and let us replace the hate. Then and only then can we make America great. If not again, when? Thank you very much for allowing my brother, my family that's here to share our grief and our unfettered determination to join you in this fight. Thank you.
On February 14, 2018, students at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School experienced one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history. On March 24th, they led the largest youth-led protest since Vietnam. And nothing has changed.
You keep seeing so many young people asking, begging politicians to just give a to just care, just talk about it just a little bit.
Since then, we've seen over 170,000 more lives lost to gun violence. And this is your response?
In this terrible tragedy, we send our thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. Each of these body bags represents 150 lives. That's people's families, friends, loved ones.
And not a single piece of federal legislation to end this crisis.
How many more thoughts and prayers are you going to give us until we start acknowledging the fact that thoughts and prayers in this country become deadly?
Now, please welcome to the stage D.C. Youth Mayor Addison Rose.
Good afternoon. My name is Addison Rose, and I serve as the D.C. Youth Mayor and the Eastern Region Teen President of Jack and Jill of America. Today, we are here to rally and march for the thousands of lives needlessly lost due to lack of stricter gun control laws in our nation. There have been over 246 mass shootings and 27 school shootings this year alone. It is imperative that we not only protect everyone's life, but especially the lives of children who are simply eager to learn and go to school to be educated, not afraid. Today, I will be introducing someone who has worked tirelessly to ensure safer communities exist in and around the Washington, D.C. area. Mayor Muriel Bowser has been pushing for D.C. to become the 51st state so that we can have a voice in Congress on such critical issues such as gun control. She invested in our youth by expanding the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, which I am proudly a product of, which provides any youth up to the age of 24 years old with a job. In the fiscal year 2023 budget, she invested $13.5 million in Recreation for All, an initiative to expand recreational programs to keep youth safe and off of the streets. She also recently launched 202 for Peace, a campaign aimed to mobilize the community and bring together agencies across the city to accelerate efforts to reduce gun violence and other forms of violent crime through education, service projects, and community engagement activities. And as most of you all know, our fearless mayor went up against Trump and made history by creating Black Lives Matter Plaza, which began a trend worldwide during a time of great unrest in our country due to the senseless murder of George Floyd. Before I invite her onto the stage, I want to thank you all for being here today when we truly need each other now more than ever. And I hope you all continue the fight for stricter gun control laws and for our lawmakers to start doing what we all voted them in office to do, protect us. With that being said, it brings me great pride to bring up to the stage our extraordinary Mayor of Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Enough is enough. I want to thank you, Addison, for speaking up for DC's young people. I want to thank and acknowledge the beautiful children behind me, DC residents. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., your nation's capital in my hometown. I speak as a mayor, a mom, and I speak for millions of Americans and America's mayors who are demanding that Congress do its job. And its job is to protect us, to protect our children from gun violence. Americans in cities and towns all across our nation are scared and frustrated. Scared because we live in a country where just about anyone who wants a gun can get a gun. Frustrated because we have been here before, and we've been here before too many times. And we're not asking for a lot. We're asking to drop off our children at school without having to worry that someone will bring an AR-15 into their classroom. We are asking to go to the grocery store without worrying that someone will be shot dead by a gunman who is filled with hate. We are asking to let our children go to the playground without worrying that a car will drive by, firing a high-capacity magazine with no regard for who gets killed. In fact, we're done asking. We're demanding change, and we're demanding change now. We need our fellow Americans, a majority of Americans who share our values, to let their senators know that they either need to make change now or get out of our way. We also need our fellow Americans to join with us in the fight for D.C. statehood. We are 700,000 tax-paying Americans in Washington, D.C. who want common sense gun reform. We're 700,000 Americans, and we have 0 senators to represent us. This isn't just about our disenfranchisement. This is about disenfranchising all Americans who want change. This is about disenfranchising anyone who, in the words of the great Fannie Lou Hamer, is sick and tired of being sick and tired. We don't have to live like this. Our global citizens, they don't live like this. It is common sense to require background checks for guns. It is common sense to require red flag laws. It is common sense to ban assault rifles in our country. But unfortunately, common sense ain't that common in the Senate. We represent the American majority, and we can't let anybody forget it. I want now to ask you, just like Addison did, don't stop fighting. When I look in the faces of our young people, we were here just a short time ago marching for our lives. And I know that the solution lies with you. You must keep marching, keep fighting, keep voting, and demanding action now. Now I have the honor of bringing up a young man, a graduate of Banneker Senior High School right here in Washington, D.C., a District of Columbia public school. He's making us proud, studying at Harvard, and he is the founder of the nonprofit Love One. He spreads love, advocates for gun reform and peace, and he is here today to help us march for our lives. Thank you, everyone.
Please welcome to the stage DC gun violence survivor and March for Our Lives organizer, Ruquan Brown.
Good afternoon. There are a lot of Americans out here. I said, good afternoon. There we go. There we go. That's the exact energy that we need to be able to solve issues like gun violence, but many issues beyond gun violence. My name is Ruquan Brown. I'm a 20-year-old student at Harvard College from right here in Washington, D.C. I'm extremely sad to be here today because I would much rather be on a cruise, watching the NBA Finals with my stepdad, or doing high school/college things with my friends. But I have to be here because of a very disgusting and intentional ignorance from this city and this nation's elected officials. I have to be here. When I spoke with Mayor Bowser 2 years ago about creating safer spaces for black children and people in our city, she told me she'd handle it. If that were true, I wouldn't be on this stage. Since our elected officials are extremely ignorant, broken, and irresponsible, I said, since our elected officials are extremely broken, ignorant, and irresponsible, I've been left with no other choice but then to explore and discover what it's going to take to keep me, my 10 siblings, my future children, you and yours safe. I thought that it might be through education, but we are unsafe in our schools. I thought that it would be through leisure, but we are unsafe on vacation. I thought that it would be through career, but we are unsafe at work. I thought it would be through politics, but we are unsafe at our Capitol too. None of these things alone will cure the fear that you, millions of beautiful people, have. Although I'm a Harvard student and should have some dissertation level scientific solution, my middle school research has led me to a very simple 4-letter solution: love. Love is a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust. Many of our politicians approach stages with only one of those ingredients. We are demanding that our politicians love, and that requires all 6 of those ingredients. We must live in a nation where love is the norm. We must live in a nation where love takes us by storm. We must live in a nation where love keeps us warm, because that is what we deserve. Our politicians are committed to paychecks. And a lot of our people are committed to comfort. But thank you for being committed to change. When my stepfather was murdered in 2018, I asked myself why this might have happened. When my teammate was murdered in 2017, I asked myself why this might have happened. When I watched friends and family in my neighborhoods and in my friends' neighborhoods be murdered, I asked, why might this be happening? When my father, who is 20 years older than me, shared with me the stories of growing up in East Oakland, I asked, why are these things still happening? These problems exist in our schools, in our neighborhoods and communities because of America's lovelessness. We don't need only more politics. Our people need love. A few feet from here, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave us one of the most remarkable speeches of our time and reminded us that he has a dream. We are a manifestation of that dream. I am calling us to use more love so that our children can safely be a manifestation of our dream. I enjoy speaking, but more than speaking, I enjoy acting. I enjoy action. I enjoy doing work that serves people. I want you all to repeat after me. Use more love. Use more love. Use more love. You guys spoke, and now it's time for action. The way that you can get involved with serving black and brown people in our neighborhoods who are constantly murdered because our mayors, our council members will not stand up for our people, please go to usemorelove.com to get involved. Thank you.
Next, please welcome to the stage Manny Oliver, father of Joaquin Oliver, who was tragically killed in the 2018 school shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, as well as David Hogg, March for Our Lives co-founder and board member and a survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I think we all agree that we are very mad, and that's the reason why we are together. Okay, so let's keep going. After this rally, we have to keep working very hard on the streets, complaining till we see a solution. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my adorable husband, Manuel. our kid always in our heart, Joaquin.
Hola, DC. That means hello, DC, just in case. I was hoping to avoid speaking to you today. I was hoping to avoid having to attend a march like this one ever again. The reason I'm here is that our elected officials betrayed us and have avoided the responsibility to end gun violence. I'll tell you what we do about it. We cry Joaquin every minute of our life. We miss Joaquin. We work with Joaquin, for Joaquin, along with Joaquin. And today, from this stage, and alongside Joaquin, we want to announce a new kind of call to action. Because I think it's time to bring a consequence to your inactions. If lawmakers who have the power to keep us safe from gun violence are going to avoid taking action that will save our lives, then young people across this country, everyone who can hear my voice, should also avoid. Avoid attending school if your leaders fail to do their job and keep us safe from gun violence. Avoid a school if Senate leaders Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell fail to pass life-saving laws to reduce gun violence. Avoid going back to school if President Biden fails to open a White House office of gun violence prevention so that we can finally give this issue the attention that it deserves. I need everyone to put your hand on your heart and take the avoid pledge. And please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the legacy of all victims of gun violence, and will avoid school until our leaders pass gun laws capable of bringing safety and justice for all. Avoid will create a social disruption. They asked for it. Good trouble. As parents of Manny Oliver, who was killed in the Parkland shooting, we are calling for a nationwide strike of American students from all levels of education, from elementary education to college, to avoid going back to school until our elected leaders stop avoiding the crisis of gun violence in America and start acting to save our lives. Please visit IWillAvoid.com. Be part of the Avoid movement It's time to pay for the consequence. You didn't listen to us. Now you're going to have to do what we are asking you to do. I will avoid. I will avoid. I will. I will. Thank you.
Yes, we can. I hope that I'm able to go back to college because our Congress acts. Can we give a round of applause to Manny and Patricia? Come on, be louder than that. Thank you. Thank you. Can everybody say thank you, Manny and Patricia? Thank you, Manny and Patricia. They never get enough credit for all the work that they do, so thank you. Absolutely. Viva la Joaquin. I want you to think of somebody that you love. Picture them now. Your child, a grandchild, a mom, a dad, partner, spouse, sibling, or best friend. Where do they attend school? Where do they go to work or church, or where do they pray? What is their name? What was the last thing that you said to them? Are there any family traditions or vacations or life milestones that recently made you smile? What is that person's name? Maybe they came with you to this march. And I want you to say their name, and I'll do it first as an example, and then you repeat after me. Sound good? So when I count down from 3, this is an example, I'll do it first. You say the person that you just thought of. So 1, 2, 3, Lauren is what I would say. Yes. Lauren has many fans, including me. Lauren's my sister, for those of you that don't know. Okay, are you ready on 3? 1, 2, 3, Lauren. Now, let's say it one more time, very loud, so that every single senator in Washington, D.C. and across the country can hear you. 1, 2, 3, Lauren! Good. Now imagine your loved one is at a shopping center grabbing some lunch. It's the middle of the day. You get a notification that says shooting. That pops up on your phone with the name of a city where your loved one lives. You text and there's no response. You call. There's no answer. You repeat this 50 more times. Could you imagine seeing their name on a growing list of victims of gun violence? Unfortunately, many of us that are here can. That list has added 200,000 names just like your loved one since the shooting that happened at my high school in Parkland, Florida in 2018. There are too many people who have lived this gut-wrenching reality every single day because there are over 100 people who have loved ones that die from gun deaths in this country that this is not a simulation for, that this happens to and will happen to tomorrow, the next day, and the day after. And unfortunately, that could be your loved one. And maybe you don't have to imagine this because it's already happened to you. I'm here because I don't want anybody to live this nightmare anymore. No matter your politics, no one should. I'm here because, like you, I love this country. And for it to function, we need to understand that rights are power, and with power comes responsibility. All Americans have a right to not be shot, a right to safety. Nowhere in the Constitution is unrestricted access to weapons of war a guaranteed right. We've seen the damage that AR-15s do when we look at the innocent children of Uvalde. Tiny coffins horrify us. Tiny coffins filled with small, mutilated, and decapitated bodies. That should fill us with rage and demands for change. Not endless debate, but demands for change. Now, not tomorrow, not tomorrow, the next day, or the next week, or next year, now! Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? You gotta be louder! Do you agree with that? Make sure that every single senator can hear you. Do you agree with that? Sorry, I'm so angry. Here's the reality. If our government can't do anything to stop 19 kids from being killed and slaughtered in their own school and decapitated, it's time to change who is in government. As we gather here today, the next shooter is already plotting his attack, while the federal government pretends it can do nothing to stop it. Since the shooting in Texas, the Senate has done only one thing. They have gone on recess. Now look, no matter if you are a gun owner or a Republican or not a Republican, we all agree we must act to stop this. How much longer are we going to debate this until we realize that we obviously have different opinions, but let's not let that stop us from doing the small thing, anything, even if it could stop the next just one Parkland from happening, because this is the cost of that. All of us agree that we must end gun violence. Every responsible gun owner, every single person, no American wants their kid to be in danger inside of their school or outside of their schools. And we must act to stop this violence. But you know what? This time is different. Let's declare it right now and say it with me loud. This time is different. Louder. This time is different. Hold up your signs and say it. This time is different. Manny, can you take a photo? There's no photographer up here. Ready? Again, louder. This time is different. This time is different. This time is different. Okay, why is this time different? It's because since we marched in 2018, we've passed over 150 pieces of gun safety legislation and laws since the first time that we marched that have saved lives. We raised the age to own guns in the state of Florida. You know how hard that is? In a Republican legislature. Where we were told as young people that you're never going to get that change. Guess what? We did. And if we did that in Tallahassee, we can do it on Capitol Hill and in our Senate right now. We required background checks on every gun sale in Virginia. We banned guns from polling places to protect our democracy in Colorado. We defeated more NRA-backed politicians as a group of teenagers and young people than ever before in American history in 2018. We have had the highest rates, some of the highest rates of youth voter turnout in American history. And you know why I know this time is different? Because not only do we have more Republicans and gun owners and Democrats and independents marching with us than ever before. The last time that I spoke at an event like this, we didn't have the White House, we didn't have the Senate or the House, and now we have all three. And that's because of you. Now it's time to get all of them to act. In 4 short years, we went from not having the Senate, the House, or the White House, and me even hanging up on the White House when Donald Trump's White House called me and said, we want to have a listening session. I said, we don't need to have a listening session. We need to have action. And in 4 years, the reason why I know this time is different is because I went from hanging up on the White House to going and meeting in the West Wing because we turned out and voted. We've changed culture too. Together, we made progress in Republican-led states that people told us was impossible. We brought proven solutions like violence intervention that was pioneered by black activists and communities to the forefront of national policy and secured funding for those programs and research like never before. Lastly, we made the NRA financially weak and culturally irrelevant. The movement to end gun violence is more diverse and representative of the country than ever before, because it has to be. No one is safe in any community, no matter if it looks like yours or not. This time, responsible gun owners are aligned on the basic solutions we need to keep our kids safe from dying. And the Uvalde shooting, and since the Uvalde shooting, a majority of Americans say, the vast majority of Americans say that stopping gun violence is a top issue for them because this is not a political issue. This is a moral issue. Not only do people, regardless of political affiliation, agree with their hearts and minds, they are mobilizing alongside us. Right now, marching with us are more responsible gun owners and Republicans and Democrats than ever before. Because we are united together against gun violence as Americans, first and foremost. We march and we make change. Let me tell you a story. After the Parkland shooting, then Republican Governor Rick Scott signed into law a 3-day waiting period for gun purchases and for a gun sale and raised the age to 21 from 18. This was one of the 150 pieces of legislation that we, all of us, not me, us, passed because you showed up. And I hear time and time again, David, these laws don't work. Let me tell you a story. These laws do work. And you know why? Because the law that we passed in Florida, my mother got a death threat that said, F with the NRA and you will be DOA. Yes, that's right. I can't say that on TV, though. But law enforcement used the red flag law that we created, that we passed in the wake of Parkland, to disarm the individual who sent my mom a death threat and threatened to kill her via court order. Seems like these laws work to me. That law, because of us turning out, very likely may have saved me from having to bury my own mother. These laws work. People say that these laws don't work, and what's funny is, there's a strong recent public health example that it lays out exactly what we need to do to prevent gun violence. Just look at the tobacco industry. We need to treat guns the way that we treated cigarettes 30 years ago. With cigarettes, we didn't just change the laws, we addressed why people wanted to smoke in the first place, and it can't be either or, it must be both. We have to address how people get guns and why they feel the need to pick them up in the first place. We must address the fact that the reason why communities like Parkland don't have shootings on a daily basis isn't because we necessarily have the strongest laws in the country, it's because we have some of the most resources in the country. Gun violence is a symptom of injustice. And if Parkland is safe, but Southeast DC is not safe, or Miami is not safe, we are not done fighting. Because we want every child and every loved one to be safe in every zip code, no matter if they have the same skin color or pray to the same God as us, because all of us deserve protection. We addressed why cigarettes were so easy to access, especially for poor kids and kids of color, and we stamped out the corruption, misinformation, and lies of big tobacco. And guess what? We're going to do the same thing with guns in the gun industry. Let's hold the gun industry to the same standard as we held the tobacco industry. We must answer, why are people so attracted to guns? Why do we buy the lies of the gun lobby that a gun equals safety when the opposite has been proven time and time again to be true? Why is it easier for an 18-year-old to buy a beer or rent a car or buy a gun than it is to vote? The common argument for these for not taking these basic steps is that criminals don't obey laws. No duh. Criminals don't obey laws by definition. But look, I will admit this to you. No law is perfect. But the shooter at my high school was not a criminal mastermind. He was a 19-year-old racist who legally obtained an AR-15. He did not have deep connections to the black market. The 18-year-old in Texas, the 18-year-old in Buffalo, they were not criminal masterminds with deep connections to the black market. They were barely adults that were able to legally obtain a weapon of mass destruction, and they waited until they were old enough to buy that gun. Let's raise the age. Let's raise the age right now. Let's raise the age. Even if we just prevent one more shooting, it's worth it because those victims could be your best friend or kid that you just named. The time for these petty arguments is up. Over the years, I have encountered my fair share of people who disagree with me. Some of them went so far as to deny me my own lived reality as a school shooting survivor and called me a crisis actor. But the reason why I know that this time is different is because I've gotten more messages than ever before from those same people that said, David, I'm sorry, we have to do something about this. We are working together to address this. As a country, we must heal and address why these shootings continue. We also must address the fact that mental health does have a role to play in stopping gun violence, but that racism is not a mental illness. Hatred, racism, radicalization, xenophobia are not mental illnesses. 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. Mental health does have a role to play in addressing that. We need to address the fact that black and brown communities are traumatized daily by gun violence, and they don't get the same resources or support that Parkland did. Every community deserves the support that Parkland got. Every community. Every single community. That is the role that mental health plays here. Let's stop using mental health as a scapegoat for confronting white supremacy in our country. Let's remember that the argument of just funding more mental health has been tried constantly again and again, and we do need to fund mental health more while recognizing racism is not a mental illness. But let's also recognize, after Columbine, they said, you know what we need is more good guys with guns in our schools. Let's remember, let's think for a second. Teachers feel the same way. Thank you to NEA and AFT for being here. I'll talk about you in a minute. We love you. Let's remember, there was a good guy with a gun at my high school. He only proved to be a coward with a gun. Let's remember that in Texas, outside of the school, there were 19 good guys with guns, heavily armored and trained, and they failed. First responders need to be the last resort and not the first to saving our kids from gun violence. Because the reality is putting more cops in schools hasn't worked, and it won't because it only is going to keep. Let's think about who actually is made more safe by that, but also realize that putting more cops in schools actually may be a form of endangering our students as well. For the students that don't have the privilege of having my skin color, or the fact that I am an American citizen. We need to stop these shooters before they get on campus and stop endangering the lives of our first responders, our students and teachers, because people on Capitol Hill don't want to do their job and protect us. Now, what I'm not demanding is that the government take your guns away. What I am saying is that we are neither pro-gun or anti-gun. We are all pro-peace. We have the same goal here of peace. Let's focus on what we can agree on. Assault rifles are designed only for one purpose, to be a killing machine. Surely, we should be taking as many steps as possible to make these deadly weapons harder to access and properly vetting every single person who desires to own them in the first place. Because if you want to have an AR-15, guess what? I want to have my classmates be alive right now. This time is different because we all see it a bit more clearly. Our enemy is not the left or right. Our common enemy is gun I I can respect those who don't agree with me all the time. What I can't accept, though, is the notion that there is nothing that we can do to stop gun violence and save our kids. We must act now. Because the children that are dying every day are not Democrats or Republicans. They are T-ball players and honor roll students with bright futures and big dreams. Every time one of their lives is being taken, someone is motivated to join this fight. We will work arm in arm with every single one of them. And when we win this fight in the end, our history will look back, and the only question that they will ask is, why the hell did this take so long? Because we will win. Peace will win. But it will take persistence. Young people did everything right. To the people who marched 4 years ago and are still marching today, we've done everything that has been asked of us. The movement is not broken, our government is broken, and it's time to fix it. Many states have listened. The failure to pass a single common sense gun law at the federal level to curb gun violence rests squarely with Washington, right here in the seat of our democracy, with the politicians who refuse to do their jobs and keep us alive. Because the status quo of letting kids die is profitable to them. The status quo of only sending your thoughts and prayers, only praying something bigger will come up in the news like Mitch McConnell is doing right now, enables them to stay in power. Mitch McConnell needs us to forget about this. He needs us to move on, but we can't because the next kid or best friend or parent who dies could be yours. This summer, we change the status quo. Vote them out. Vote them out. Louder. Vote them out. Vote them out. Louder. Vote them out. Vote them out. I got to save my voice. Vote them out. Louder. 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 Again. Vote them out. Vote them out. Okay. I think they heard us. And if they didn't, it doesn't matter. They're going to be voted out anyways. We know exactly what to do if the Senate fails to pass the Protect Our Kids Act or any individual law that stops the bloodshed in our country, as Manny just talked about. We will break voting records this November, just like we did in 2020 and the 2018 midterms. And young people are running to replace those cowards who only misrepresent us. Today, on June 11th, we are making history once again. What's more important to me is knowing that you will still be here on June 12th and beyond, because this can be the beginning of the end, but this is not the end. This is only the beginning and not the end. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to say yes, so be loud so every senator can hear you. Can I count for you to be here on June 12th and June 13th and beyond? Yes! Can I count on you to be here in November and every November that we have an election after? Yes. Can I count on you to be here even when they say that the work in creating peace is impossible? Yes. Can I count on you being here no matter how long it takes because peace takes persistence? Yes. Right now, I need you to stay in touch with us. This is the first of major actions planned in the lead up to this election and beyond, because this is the beginning and not the end of this march. So I need every single one of you to right now that's listening at home or in the crowd to take out your phones so that we can stay in touch with you. I need you to take out your phones and text NEXT to 954-954 because we need people to show up in Texas at Senator John Cornyn's office when I need you there. I need you to show up in Pat Toomey's office in Pittsburgh when I need you there. I need you to show up in Marco Rubio's office when I need you there. And the way that we do that is by everybody texting NEXT to 954-954. Again, that is NEXT to 954-954. That is how we are going to stay in touch and ensure that this is the beginning and not the end. We know what we are doing. We know what is next, and we have to continue to show up because we have a plan of what happens beyond June 11th, and I need you to continue marching and protesting with us beyond it as long as it takes. Every time that you don't feel hopeful, I want you to think back to your loved one that you named earlier. Think back to the people that are around you right now. Look around. Look at the person to your left and look at the person to your right. You are not alone. None of us are alone, regardless of whether or not you're a survivor or ally. We are not alone. We need to understand, I also want you to remember that America is not as divided as Congress. The most divided people in this country are not in the 50 red, blue, and purple states across the country. They're right here. They are 100 senators on Capitol Hill. Because we do have Republicans with us. We do have gun owners with us. We all want change. Either they unite behind the changes we're demanding, or we will vote them out, because all of us do agree, left and right, gun owners and non-gun owners, that we must take action to save lives now. This time is different because you are still here. Thank you to all the survivors and the activists and the violence interrupters and the students, especially to the black and brown women like Erica Ford and Poe Murray and Congresswoman McBath and many others of the gun violence prevention movement who never get enough credit. Please give them a round of applause. The only reason this movement exists is because of the decades of work that especially women have put into this. Thank you to the National Education Association. Thank you to the American Federation of Teachers who are marching with us and into November and beyond. Thank you to the young, the old, the staff members of our movement, the organizers of our movement. Thank you to the progressives, to the moderates, to the conservatives, the millions of responsible gun owners who are marching with us today, all of those who are on our side and the same side, all aligned under one goal, which is that we are going to stop this violence, stop the death, and stop the killing. This time is different. This march is only the beginning, but we must continue to show up every year and vote. And show up. If you don't take one message from today, there are two things I need you to do. Vote and show up at your state legislatures every year. Show up at your state legislatures. Congress doesn't have its act together, and we're going to continue doing all we can there. But let's get the action that we can now at the state legislative level. Because I firmly believe right now in this moment in American history of great division and divide, I believe if we put our politics aside and focused on our mission and why we're here, which is our kids and the effort to create a more perfect union for them, that if we work together over the next 10 years and showed up every year voting on this issue consistently, showing up at our state legislatures and not just showing up when this is in the headlines or when there's a march, but showing up constantly by texting next to 954-954, because that's how I'm going to stay in touch with you. If we did that and put our politics aside and demanded our politicians in Washington acted, we could cut gun deaths in half this decade. That would be 250,000 lives saved. 250,000 people like your best friend. But the way that we do that is by showing up every single year. So not only are we going to vote this year and march right now, we're going to continue marching and demanding action every single month, every single year, until no kid in any community, white, black, brown, undocumented, or an American citizen, until no kid has to live in fear of gun violence and no loved one has to live in fear of gun violence. Thank you, and let's keep marching. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Esri, a national organizer with March for Our Lives, and I'd like you to join me in welcoming our next speaker, an activist, community organizer, and the first black woman to represent Missouri in Congress. Let's hear it for Congresswoman Cori Bush.
I love that. I thank you. But you know what? I'm here because you matter. I'm here because of you. I would not even be in the seat if it wasn't because of my love for you and the love you have for one another. So give it up for yourselves. So again, my name is Congresswoman Cori Bush. I'm joining you all after a week when my congressional colleagues and I heard these heart-wrenching testimonies from survivors of gun violence and the grieving families of victims. We heard from Uvalde fourth grader Mia Cirillo,
who covered herself in her classmates' blood and pretended to be dead to survive. We heard from the grieving parents of Lexi Rubio and Angel now. You all are just 10 years old. I'm joining you a few weeks after an 18-year-old white supremacist who was indoctrinated by Tucker Carlson and Fox News after he targeted a black community in Buffalo and committed a massacre. I'm joining you today not just as the St. Louis Congresswoman, but I'm also a survivor of gun violence who knows that Senate Republicans' obstruction of gun violence prevention legislation, you all, it's killing us. And it could have killed me, but it's killing us. And they get to act like they don't care because they want what they want. And we say no, 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 no. So I haven't survived gun violence just once, you all. I have survived gun violence multiple times. Multiple times. And justice in our federal policies could have saved me from having to endure the trauma of those near-death experiences. So I want to talk to you today about one of those times. I want those members of Congress who are complicit in every mass shooting that happens because of their own perpetuation of policy violence. I want them to know, those of us who are gun violence survivors, who will not let up until change happens, we are everywhere. We are outside of their offices. We're organizing. We're protesting until they start acting right. We're in their communities. We're organizing until we win. And yes, we are in Congress too. We are. And so no matter how badly you want to silence us, we will never give up our push to save lives. Despite every single effort, despite every attack, every criticism, every bit of pushback, despite what they say and do against us, we will never give up the fight to save lives. So I want to share my story with you. I was around 20 years old when I found myself in a relationship with an abusive partner. My family knew he was abusive. They were concerned, of course, about me. And we knew that he had guns. He kept one gun in the cabinet in the kitchen and another in between our pillows when we slept at night. But I never believed he would actually fire at me. I just thought, I thought that those guns were just a scare tactic. I was younger than I am now. I was hoping for the best. The best didn't happen. One day, my abusive partner became upset with me because he did not approve of the way I was cooking 2 hamburgers in a pan. We began arguing. He started to hit me. I decided to run out of the apartment and to run down the steps out the back door. I ran across the parking lot. And as I ran, I remember thinking to myself, why isn't he chasing me? Wait a minute. Why isn't he chasing me? So I kept running. I thought I was going to get away. When I turned back for a moment, because why isn't he chasing me? I turned back and I saw him standing still. Why is he standing still? Next thing I knew, I heard shots fired. But I didn't know if they were aimed at me until they started whizzing past my head. That moment, bullets whizzing past my head, I couldn't turn around.
That moment of horror, it stays with me. That moment when gun violence strikes is so deeply traumatic and completely preventable. It was completely preventable. I was scared, you all, because I couldn't turn around again. If I turned around and saw how he was aiming, that could help him to hit his target. And I didn't know when he would stop. I remember thinking how deeply unfair that moment was. He could play with my life. He could take my life into his hands because he had guns. I didn't have anything to help me. He had guns. He could choose whether he would take me out that day. I remember thinking, he gets to just kill me. I didn't know where he got the guns from. I didn't know where he got the bullets from. They just appeared one day. Once a person is hit with a bullet, it can't be taken back. Even if there's remorse later, if my abusive partner would have killed me, he could not take that back. There was no, oops, I'm sorry, Corey, I won't do it again. I'll buy you a diamond necklace. There was no, oh, I didn't mean it. Let me buy you another outfit. It's just done. I wouldn't be anyone's congresswoman right now had he succeeded. My kids would not have been born had he succeeded. And all of that would have been true because one person was angry for one moment. So I'm here standing with the youth-led movement to end violence, to share. Closing the boyfriend loophole could have helped save me from a near lethal encounter with gun violence. A red flag law could have helped save me from a nearly lethal encounter with gun violence. Universal background checks could have helped save me from a near lethal encounter with gun violence. These laws could have helped save me and millions of others. This reality is abstract, though, you all, for those Republicans in Congress who've never experienced what it's like to be on the other side of a gun. And it becomes more and more abstract the more money that the NRA pumps into their campaign coffers, and we know that that's what's going on. So we're here today to demand life. We're here to demand our freedoms. Freedom from lethal intimate partner gun violence. Freedom from weapons of war in our schools, in our churches, and in our grocery stores. Freedom from the arming of white supremacists and the incitement of white supremacist ideologies. We're here to stand against it. We're here because we deserve freedom from hate, and we demand our freedom, and we will not stop until we get it. 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 Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zenit, and I'm the Director of Policy here at March for Our Lives. You may have noticed that the clock stopped at 78 minutes. That is the amount of time it took for the police to intervene before entering the school in the Uvalde shooting. I'd like to take a moment of silence for all of those that we've lost to gun violence. We fight every day for our...
Do not run! Freeze! Do not run! There is no issue here! Do not run! Let's now give attention. When I say peace, you say it's a lifestyle. Peace. 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 As the young brother said before, love is going to overcome hate. Love is going to overcome hate. My name is Erica Ford. Before I was 30 years old, I was involved in over 20 mass shootings. The only thing, they weren't called mass shootings then. They were just called shootings in the hood. And I lost over 75 friends killed in these streets, not counting the numbers that went to jail for 25 and 30 years. Our community was destroyed. Families was devastated. Trauma was beyond describable. The vicarious trauma of violence is not getting addressed. And so I got Carl, who was one of my staff members at Life Camp, who lost his entire family to one bullet. We brought the Buffalo families back up here so that you don't forget Buffalo. But what I did with my pain and my anger is I built a movement with my friends. And we created something addressing the disease of violence and knowing that we had to help people heal. So yes, you can talk about guns, but we got to talk about the mindset that makes people do things beyond control. If we don't put resources in these black and brown communities where our babies are dying every single day, then we are not talking about addressing gun violence. And so I know that I had to work on both sides of the guns. And I began to work with the police who I know hated me. I worked with the elected officials that I know hated me. And nobody wanted me to succeed but the young people and their families. But I am able to stand here years later and say we did that. We built a system in New York City that not only addressed violence, but made New York the safest big city in America. What we do works. What we do works. I want to do a fact check real quick. People wear orange in this world because of me. People wear orange because years ago, I said the same way they got pink for breast cancer and red for whatever, we gonna do orange for peace. And white people with more resources Benz and more money and more lift, took it and made wear orange and all of that other stuff, and we love that because the dream became a reality. But just know where the pillow was and where the person was sleeping when the dream came out. We're standing here with community action. Greg, we're standing here with Anita from Milwaukee. We're standing here with Kelly from Buffalo. We're standing here with young Brianna, who was born out of the March for Our Lives movement. Bria. Right? Because we don't want patronism, we want equity. We don't want you to just say Black Lives Matter. We want y'all to help us pass the Break the Cycle of Violence Act. Because before the shooting in Buffalo, Buffalo was oppressed. Buffalo had a food apartheid. In South Jamaica, they got a food apartheid. In Chicago, they got a food apartheid. Everywhere where we live, there's an issue with getting resources and oxygen to our children, and we want to stop that today. If we gonna stand together, then we gonna breathe together, we gonna eat together, we gonna live together. And see, this is this new shit. Everybody having allergies at their late ages. That's another form of warfare against us. So before I step off this stage, I want to say we got a fun piece. I can't hear you. Fun piece. Fun peace, fun peace, fun peace. The other thing that I want to say is let's not give in to the hate. Let's not give in to the hate. There's more people who are about love than there is that is about hate. And so let's get these resources in these communities. Let's help save these lives, and let's pass this Break the Cycle Act. Peace is a lifestyle.
Hey guys, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm not on the agenda, but we need to acknowledge what just happened. And I want to let everyone know, everybody's fine. There is nothing to be concerned about. However, unfortunately, somebody decided to show up and put the fear that we live with every day to life. And so, thank you all for staying here. I love you all, and to the kids, to all of you kids, I love you, and we are going to fight for you. Everything is okay. Thank you for being here. Mwah!
When I say all power, you say to the people, all power. All power. When I say all power, you say to the people, all power. All power. When I say I am, you say a peacemaker. I am. I am. I am. I am. Clap it up, everybody, if you're a peacemaker out here. This is what our country needs. We need peacemakers. We need healers. We need those who are devoted to peace and justice and not violence and hate.
Some asked me some time ago, why do I care so much about gun violence? So many names I could lift up. Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland. But I got a young man in my community whose life was lost at the age of 19. His name was Larry. Say his name, Larry. Say his name. At the age of 19, he was shot outside of a liquor store. A young man that we helped to get through high school in our neighborhood. We did his funeral. Over 500 young people came. When I asked the young people to lift your hands, if you've been to more than one funeral, all the young people in the church lifted their hands. I asked them, if you've been to more than 2 funerals, the young people lifted their hands. I asked them, if you've been to more than 5 funerals, 500 young people in our church lifted their hands. I got as high as 10 funerals. I'm talking about high school students. And more than half of the young people in this church lifted their hands weeping. And I asked myself, what kind of preacher am I? What kind of leader am I? How could I call myself a leader while children are losing 10 of their friends before they graduate from high school? We need to acknowledge that we are not here just to call for new policies. We are here to call for a healing to the soul of America that has been sick for far too long. We're here to acknowledge that our collective psyche is not well. We all have been traumatized by violence. We point to a shooter and say he needs mental health services. But guess what? We need mental health services. We as a nation must scale up mental health and trauma healing so every human being in the United States of America has access to a therapist, to a healer, to public health services, and do not have to pay for it. We need a new social contract, one that invests our tax dollars in healing and peace rather than trauma and violence. And I got good news for you. In every city all across the country where we live and work and play and worship, we have peacemakers, frontline violence interrupters, credible messengers who are waking up every day with little to no resources to interrupt lethal conflicts so we can feel more safe in our communities. How many know we need to pay these loved ones a livable wage and make sure they have access to health care, just like we do police officers and firefighters in every city in America? So when you get back home, I need you to find these peacemakers. I need you to find these loved ones in these organizations like Erica Ford has mentioned, and become friends and partners and comrades with them. Advocate for them. Don't allow them to work in erasure and invisibility. And know that, as Erica said, we need to pass the Break the Cycle of Violence Act that is in the Senate and the House right now. Come on, everybody, repeat after me. Say, break the cycle. Say it again, break the cycle. We give much respect to the Biden administration who helped follow our lead and put $5 billion to fund peace all across the country in some of the previous bills. But now we got to pass the bills. So as we leave here, we must, as a people, unite behind the idea that gun violence is a public health issue. All of us have a responsibility. Everybody say all of us. Pat yourself on the chest and say, that means me. That means me. We have a responsibility to talk about gun violence as a public health issue. We must focus ourselves to reach for public health solutions that solve the violence that leads to suicides, homicides, intimate partner violence, and accidental shootings. And for those forces that seek to intimidate and paralyze our communities through hate, white supremacist terror that fuels your violence, I got news for you. I got news for you. You will not win. You will not win. There are more of us than there are of you. There are more of us than there are of you. And you will not win. I want to invite all of us to keep remembering, in the words of my Ferguson revolutionary comrade, the brother named Tef Poe. He said it like this. Repeat after me. Say, I believe that we will win. Say, I know that we will win. Put your fists up. Say, I know that we will win. Say, I know that we will win.
Please welcome to the stage Yolanda King, granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, joined by Jacqueline Corin, co-founder of March for Our Lives and survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
How many of you were marching with us in 2018 after the shootings in Parkland, Florida? Well, now we're back after the massacres in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York, and at least 38 shootings in just over 22 weeks. How many of you are here to say enough is enough? Many of us have been wearing our marching shoes for years. But today we're telling Congress, we're telling the gun lobby, and we're telling the world, this time is different. This time is different because we've had enough. We've had enough of having more guns than people here in America. We've had enough of kids being afraid to go to school, grown-ups being afraid to go to grocery stores, and families who look like my family being afraid to go to their houses of worship. This time is different because this isn't about politics. It's about morality. Not right and left, but right and wrong. And that doesn't just mean thoughts and prayers. That means courage and action. Like so many of you, I come from a thoughtful, prayerful family. My grandfather was taken from the world by gun violence. And 6 years after his death, his mother, my great-grandmother, was killed in church during Sunday service. We all have been touched by tragedy. We all have been lifted up by hope. And we still believe that, as my grandfather once said, we'll be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. And this time is different because it isn't only about kids. It's about all of us. It's about all of us who cried when we heard that 11-year-old from Uvalde tell Congress about playing dead when the gunman killed her classmates. It's about all of us who were hurting when we heard about the moms and dads in Buffalo who were struck down while buying groceries and food for their families. It's about all of us who were called to action against gun violence, COVID, climate catastrophes, racism, and attacks on democracy. Are you ready, young and old and in between, to be the generations that make ourselves heard from ballots, not bullets? Are you ready to move beyond 50 years of fear and failure? Are you ready to forward to what our parents and grandparents called the beloved community? Together, we can carve that stone of love and hope out of that mountain of death and despair. Together, we can build a gun-free world for all people. My generation is with you for as long as it takes. So, with this being said, are you with us? Come on, I know you can scream louder. Are you with us? Are you with us? Let's do it.
Please welcome to the stage Becky Pringle, President of the National Education Association, joined by teachers, students, and parents.
The view from up here is magnificent. We are joined by educators and students who have come together with you to lift up our voices. I have my sister Randy Weingarten right here beside me, and I just want to say that I am so thankful for the students and parents and educators who are standing with us, who have survived and who are still mourning the loss of so many and so much. But they are pushing through that pain toward their purpose in hopes of never letting this happen again. That this time, we will finally take action in this country. 23 years ago, I was faced with the same question teachers all over this country were faced with 2 weeks ago when 19 children and 2 teachers were gunned down by an assault weapon. They said to me, Mrs. Pringle, am I safe? Will that happen here? I said, oh baby, this country will never let that happen again. And then Virginia Tech and Sandy Hook and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and now Robb Elementary. So many schools and churches and synagogues and mosques and nightclubs and grocery stores and streets of this country have experienced gun violence. The difference in 23 years is that educators today can honestly say this won't happen unless we continue to stand strong and stand up. Will we stand up? We know that our students should be going to schools where they feel affirmed and safe and loved. We will not let this happen again. We will embrace the powerful words of James Baldwin. There is never a time in the future when my salvation will be here. The time is now. The time is always now. The time is now to stand up for our students. The time is now to hold our legislators accountable. The time is now to tell them if they don't do their jobs, we're coming for their jobs come November. We must heed the clarion call of Cesar Chavez. There's no turning back because ours is a revolution of the mind and of the heart. America, there's no turning back. We will not stop. We will not falter. We will stand up together because our children, our babies are depending on us to be worthy of them. Randy. Wait, Becky. Look, I'm so grateful that Fred came up earlier. We know that there's so much anxiety, but we are on the front line of freedom and on safety and of getting to the end of the scourge of gun violence. Becky and I have traversed the country, as has David, as has Yolanda, and we want to thank everyone for March for Our Lives for doing these rallies in hundreds of places around the country to say enough is enough. And by the way, my name is Randy Weingarten. I'm a high school social studies teacher. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a union leader. I'm a grandmother. And most importantly, I am a human being who counts myself among the people who want to end gun violence. Are you with me? Make sure the Congress hears you. Are you with me? Are you with me? Every educator, every student, every survivor, where is she? Including my dear, dear friend, Mylene Hoshing from Parkland. They survived the shootings. They are here to fight to make sure it never happens again. Thank you. Look, you can stay with me. I need that. I need the hugs. We take this on, this fight for common sense gun laws, in the names of everyone who's been affected by gun violence. We take it on so people can worship or dance or shop without the fear of being shot. And teachers and parents take this on with particular urgency so our children, our students, as Becky said, can go to school without the fear of being shot. Schools should be places of hope, not fear. Schools should be safe sanctuaries, not fortresses. This is our fight for a welcoming and safe environment where everyone feels welcomed and safe. And that's why we are marching in hundreds of places in the United States today. It's a movement for safety, for freedom from gun violence. It's for the young and the old, the suburban, the rural, the urban, black and white, rich and poor, those who own guns and those who never want to be with a gun.
We're facing a uniquely American epidemic, a toxic brew of guns and hate that has taken the lives of over 100 people every day. Mass shootings, homicides, suicides, domestic violence, accidental gun deaths on our streets, our stores, our places of worship, and in our schools. So you know, you've seen already the people that we have mourned today and honored today. And as David said, this time must be different. And as Mother Jones has said, we pray for the dead, but we fight like hell for the living. So while other countries have responded to their mass shootings with solutions that actually solve the crisis, here in the U.S., gun manufacturers and their profits seem more important than the lives of 10-year-olds. And the bottom line is, we got to get guns out of the hands of people who should not have them. And we got to get weapons of war off our streets. And here is the point I want to make to every politician. We've taken action when it comes to airline safety, when it comes to auto safety. We've passed laws to make our streets and our skies safer in response to accidents and tragedies. Why can't we do this for gun safety? Why do the gun manufacturers get a pass? Why isn't kids' lives more important? If you care about kids, you care about this. If you care about schools, you care about this. If you care about humanity, you care about this. So look, we know what works. Universal background checks, red flag laws, safe storage provisions, and bans on high-capacity magazines. And I want to say one more thing about teachers. Teachers want to be teaching. They do not want to holster firearms. We need fewer guns in schools, not more of them. And as we head back to school this fall, please arm us with resources, with books, with school counselors, not with bulletproof vests. Ironically, the same folks who say we should carry a gun in a classroom are the ones that are saying that don't trust us to pick up the appropriate books and curriculum for our nation's kids. So, I ask these politicians this: if we have the judgment to shoot a bad guy, why don't we have the judgment to plan our lessons? Let us teach. Trust us to help our students achieve their dreams and give us the time and the tools and the resources to do it. So enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Not one more student, not one more educator, not one more community should be ravaged by the horror of gun violence. Thank you.
In their first major speech since 2018, please welcome to the stage X Gonzalez, along with fellow gun violence survivors.
Hi, everybody. My name is X Gonzalez. I used to be known as Emma, but now I go by X, and I use they, them pronouns. Happy Pride. I'm not a girl. That's the point. We are the survivors of gun violence. From Columbine, Sandy Hook, Buffalo, Uvalde, Oxford, Michigan, Parkland, Florida, DC, Chicago, and everywhere across this country. What I say here today is mostly directed at Congress. I've spent these past 4 years doing my best to keep my rage in check, to keep my profanity at a minimum so that everyone can understand and appreciate the arguments that I'm trying to make, but I have reached my fucking limit! I am not going to hold myself back anymore for the sake of somebody else's fragile ego. If you can't hear what I'm saying through the anger that I only have because of your inaction, that's a you problem. We are being murdered. Cursing will not rob us of our innocence. You say that you will bend over backwards to protect children in schools, but pour money into the gun industry and give firearms to our teachers and staff members instead of giving them the money for pencils and paper. You say that you want to protect children, but as soon as it's about Black lives, you're all for tear gassing, protesting children in the streets and ignoring the people who drive their cars into crowds of us. You say that queer and trans identities are immoral for children, but somehow conversations about what to do when a white supremacist terrorist inevitably tries to kill us are moral. You say that children are the future and you never fucking listen to what we say once we're old enough to disagree with you, you decaying degenerates. You really want to protect children? Pass some fucking gun laws! This is not an issue of mass shootings and schools. This is a problem everywhere in this country. Believing that school shootings are the only form of gun violence that needs to be eradicated is rooted in racism and classism. Putting police in schools will only protect children. Putting police in schools to protect children only swells the school-to-prison pipeline, which mainly affects Black and brown children, and fully ignores the dangers of gun violence outside of school. How many ways can we say it? Gun violence does not discriminate. It happens everywhere and all the time. It has been happening everywhere all the time because you, Congress, have done nothing to prevent it. You have decided that gun violence is a fact of life, a natural disaster on par with tornadoes, hurricanes, and wildfires. We don't fucking buy it. This does not have to happen. We have watched other countries enact quick change in the face of gun violence over the decades. And you know something? It worked. We watched it work. It's not that difficult. If you are a congressperson who thinks that we cannot pass gun laws in this country because it's against the Constitution and America is a place for freedom, I bet you inject disinfectant. I was trying not to curse at the time I wrote this, and I changed some swear words for insults. We are living in a country with a backsliding and flawed democracy. And while you think that this is a founding father's dream come true, you've actually aided and abetted an ever-growing American nightmare that plagues everyone currently alive. Our government can't keep its hands off women's bodies. The poor and homeless are systematically rejected from society as the rich get unbelievably richer. Refugees are subject to racist attacks, and white supremacist terrorist insurrection almost killed a lot of you in office currently. Did you fucking forget that? If any of this had happened in another country, you would have used it as an excuse to colonize and drop bombs. But when it happens here, you replicate it and maintain. You think we don't see that? You want to be helpful? You want to make this world a better place, Congress? There's one thing that you in office can take away from this speech. It's pass the fucking gun laws! How can we convince you that this is vital for our collective survival? Do you honestly think things are okay like this? Do you honestly think this is a good place to live? You might be wondering, X, I haven't heard from you much these past 4 years. What have you been doing? Why aren't you on Twitter? I've seen your colleagues around. The answer is very simple. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Everything that I have said now is stuff that I've said before. I didn't want to add anything same old to the conversation when nothing has changed. I'm not going to clutter the timeline with my unhinged ravings. My PTSD has me feeling suicidal thoughts that I've managed to very positively turn towards anger instead, and that's what I'm doing here today. I don't share all these raging thoughts on Twitter, unlike some idiotic and messy elected officials, because I know that it's bad and wrong to incite violence and accept no consequences for my actions. I'm responsible for the impact that I have on people. It's your job to be constructive and give us the tools to build a better life. Tell us you can do it, not they are out to get you. Stop sowing division and help us, you fucking jackasses. Thanks to us, we've already got your biggest obstacle to passing gun laws out of the way, the NRA. They're not what they once were. Thanks to us. The NRA, which was an organization that was very publicly holding you hostage with terrorist threats and embarrassing propaganda, no longer has the hold on you that it used to, Congress. You could have made some real change in the past 4 years and shown them who's boss. Take the checks that they wrote you and not cash them. But that's just me. I see people suffering and try to help. I see problems with relatively simple solutions and try to fix them. Again, that's just me. It's kind of embarrassing, though, to be this adamant that there is no problem and there is no reason to pass gun laws. We saw you cash those checks. We know that you know gun violence is an issue. We brought the topic to you with international attention and resources 4 years ago. We as children did the heavy lifting for you. Act your age, not your shoe size, Congress. All you had to do was pass the fucking gun laws, and you didn't even do that. I don't know how to convince you that you should care about people. You were not elected to make decisions for us. You were elected to pass our will into law. You cannot ignore the fact that almost 100% of citizens in this country want background checks. Why won't you pass it? Is it the money you're making from all the gun manufacturers, which increases every time another white supremacist terrorist attack occurs? Is it all the money you're making from the prison industrial complexes? From policing? How much money do you make every time someone dies? Why do you only realize the impact of this problem when it hits you personally? You ought to be ashamed. Now, you may feel offended, Congress, at the tone of voice that I have used towards you. You may say that I've shown my true colors and should no longer be listened to as a force for peace. But I am not speaking for people to listen to me. We're all in agreement about this. We feel the same way. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm speaking directly to you, Congress. There is no peace in this country, not so long as you stay change. I am sick of watching you people play political games like this is a TV show. I will not hold my tongue in the effort of maintaining your fragile egos and playing games that I had no hand in creating. After 4 years, I got my degree. What did you do? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us this program.